Okay, so this is it. Joseph can't take any more of this. He has he has gone as far as he can go with this game of pretend. He's been testing his brothers. He has not been doing this to get back at them or to act maliciously towards them. He has not. We read earlier how he was already weeping at the sight of them or whatever, and so like this was not something that he was doing because he was playing a dirty trick on them or that he was getting back at them for 20, paying them back for their misdeeds against him with 20 years plus interest. Okay, he's doing this to test them. He wants to see if they're still the rotten scumbags they were when he knew them, or if they have become the saints of God that they need to be. But he has gone as far with this as he can go. Talking Judah's little speech here about Benjamin and Jacob is that's we have now pushed Joseph. We have now pushed Joseph to his limits. Then, or actually past his limits, actually. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence!" So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. What are you doing, Cat? I don't like this at all. I don't like. No. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. And Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then excuse me. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt." I'm guessing he's finally speaking their language. I'm assuming, it doesn't actually say specifically, but I'm assuming that up through this moment, he was still using an interpreter to communicate. Even though he didn't actually need one, he was still keeping up the charade by using an interpreter. Obviously, he's not here because he sent everyone else out of the room. "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now," so now we have a time frame here. "For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will not be plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Or to save you as a great band of survivors. There's a footnote in the text down there. "So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, 'This is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen, and be near me.'" That would be up in the northern part of Egypt, where the Nile empties into the Mediterranean Sea. "You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all you have. I'll provide for you there, because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise, you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute." Now remember, Jacob was rich. Isaac was very rich. We read about Isaac being blessed 100-fold. Abraham was rich. Like these were wealthy, prominent dudes. Abraham's family, Terah and his sons were probably a pretty prominent family, even in Ur, the Chaldees. And when they came out, they had a lot, and then Abraham had a lot as he went around, and then Isaac got a lot. We read about him getting 100-fold, reaping 100-fold. Jacob didn't have anything when he went to go be with Laban, and everything he worked for while he was with Laban went to Laban. But when he came back, in addition to the flocks he eventually pried away from Laban, he got all of Isaac's stuff. He's inherited all that. But they could lose it all in this famine. They're in danger now of losing everything in this famine. So they had been foreign. Now Jacob actually had purchased a plot of land around Shechem, and of course you know what happened in Shechem. So they've been foreigners, they've been wanderers. God's not going to actually give them the land until the generation of Moses and afterwards. But they're in the land as strangers and travelers. But they were a wealthy family. They had lots of stuff. But with the years of famine that are still ahead of them, they could lose it all. They could become destitute. In fact, Joseph is saying that if you don't come down to Egypt, you will become destitute. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded me in Egypt, and about everything you have seen, and bring my father down here quickly. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin, and wept. And Benjamin embraced him, weeping. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. There's a lot of male-on-male kissing, by the way. We've seen one instance so far of a man kissing a woman. Jacob kissed Rachel when he first saw her. Other than that, all the kissing has been done male-on-male. I'm not sure if it's straight up on the lips kissing. I don't know. But we see a lot of kissing in Genesis, and except for one instance, it's all been male-on-male. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. So they're catching up on old times. I think they have a lot to catch up on, huh? When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Joseph and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land." You are also directed to tell them, "Do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about all your belongings, because the best of all Egypt will be yours." So the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts, as Pharaoh had commanded, and he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver, and 5 sets of clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded with the best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. It's a lot of stuff. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Don't quarrel on the way." So I guess they can still be quarrelsome, huh? If you got 11 brothers, or 10 brothers, 11, all of them but Joseph, they're going to quarrel. It's like, that's just what brothers do. Okay? So they, even as adults, even as adult brothers, 11 of them, they're going to quarrel. So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him, "Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt." Jacob was stunned. He did not believe it. That would be a lot to believe. I have to admit, I don't fault Jacob here. It's like, what? That would be quite a reversal from how he had been living and what he had been thinking for the previous 23 years or whatever. That would be quite a reversal. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. I like that sentence. That always gets me. The spirit of their father Jacob revived. We read about how much he'd been living in bereavement. He said back here in chapter 43, verse 14, "If I am bereaved, I am bereaved." It's nobody. So he had been living in bereavement for all these years, and now the spirit of his spirit revives. And Israel said, "I'm convinced my son Joseph is still alive."
Leave a message if you desire.
"I'm convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." So Israel set out with all that was his. And when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob. Here I am, he replied. I am God, the God of your father, he said. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. So when Jacob dies, and he's there in the grasp of death, it'll be Joseph who shuts his eyes after he dies. Jacob himself, well, I mean, he does go back to this land as a dead body. He never goes back to the land alive. He is buried here. He is buried in the land. His people will go back later on. Now, previously, let's see here. Way back in Genesis 26, God had given Isaac a vision, or appeared to Isaac and said, don't go down to Egypt. So they had been warned, and Abraham had gone to Egypt before. But now, so they had gone to Egypt. Abraham did, had a bad encounter there, got into trouble there with Sarah. But then Isaac was specifically warned not to go to Egypt. And now Jacob is being told, do go to Egypt. The time has come for them to go to Egypt. In Isaac's day, it was not time for them to go to Egypt. But now it is. Now in the later days of Jacob, it is time for them to go to Egypt. Then Jacob left Beersheba, and Israel's sons took their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport them. They also took with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in Canaan. And Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt. He took with him to Egypt his sons and grandsons, and his daughters, again that's plural, we see that plural now mentioned again, and granddaughters, all his offspring. These are the names of the sons of Israel. Was that you? Odd. These are the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob and his descendants, who went to Egypt. Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob. The sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Now, once upon a time, Reuben said he had two sons. In chapter 42, verse 37, Reuben says, you may put both of my sons to death. So at that time, he only had two. Apparently, in the interim, he had two more. Or maybe they were born in Egypt. I really don't know. I'm not clear on whether this is an official head count of the traveling party that went down to Egypt, or if this is a family as it existed once they got there. I just don't know exactly. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. I don't know where these other women are getting their wives from. I really don't know. If they're not getting their wives from the women of Canaan, I'm not sure where they're getting it from. It doesn't say that about Reuben. Maybe he's getting his wife. Maybe he slept with Bilhah. We saw him do that once. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. We're going to be hearing a lot of those names to come. Some of these names they're not going to be hearing so much from, but the sons of Levi, we're going to be hearing a lot about them. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. Remember that back in chapter 38? I guess Shelah didn't, but we don't hear about him again. The sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Hua, Jashub, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These are the sons Leah bore to Jacob and Pad and Aaron, besides his daughter Dinah. These sons and daughters of his were 33 in all. The sons of Gad: Zephon, Haggi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. The sons of Asher: Imnah, Ishvi, and Beriah. Their sister was Sarah. The sons of Beriah: Heber and Malchiel. These are the children born to Jacob by Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah. 16 in all. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel: Joseph and Benjamin. In Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, priest of On or Heliopolis. The sons of Benjamin: Beli, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Hupen, and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob. 14 in all. That's a lot of sons for Benjamin to have at the time that they're moving down into Egypt. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And Benjamin himself would only be in his early 30s at this time. Maybe even younger. Hang on a second. Okay, that was something. That was a phone call. Hey, Kat, you're a pest. Stop being a pest. Anyway, what was I saying? Because Joseph would have been about 39 when they made the trek down to Egypt. Benjamin was younger than Joseph by several years. So he would have only been in his early 30s. It's kind of tough for me to believe he'd already have 10 sons by this. I guess it's technically possible, but it's a stretch. So I don't know if this is a head count of the traveling party that physically went down to Egypt, or if this is just like a family lineup of Jacob's, immediate. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how that works. The son of Dan, Husham. Poor Dan only gets one son. The sons of Naphtali: Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shillem. These are the sons born to Jacob by Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel. 7 in all. All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons' wives, who would not have been his direct descendants, numbered 66 persons. Of the 2 sons who had been born to Jacob in Egypt, the members of Jacob's family which went to Egypt were 70 in all. There is a footnote down here. You see also Acts 7:14, 75. So 70, 75. I'd have to actually look up to see exactly where that count. I mean, like I said, it's confusing to me. But at any rate, these are the people who were in Jacob's family at this time. Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. I guess they hadn't been there before. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, and will say to him, 'My brothers and my father's household, who are living in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, they tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks, "What is your occupation?" you should answer, "Your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did." Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians. Now later on, and we'll get to this as we kind of go through this, at some point I'm going to have a dedicated video, or maybe even more than one, talking strictly about some of the Egyptian historical details. But late cat, oh no, 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 oh no. Oh no. She's looking at me. That's her. She wants to cause trouble. There's nothing she wants more right now than to cause trouble. Oh no. Oh no. Later on, we're going to be looking at the Egyptian side of this, and it's interesting. You know, Joseph here talks about shepherds being detestable to Egyptians, and to the Egyptians' shame. In the future, they're going to be Timber. Please, hang on a second. I missed. They're going to be ruled by a line of shepherds. The Hyksos, the shepherd kings, who are going to come in and dominate them for a period of years. We'll talk about that later on. But that is a little bit of an interesting note there that I don't know. I don't really know why. I mean, we read earlier about them not wanting to associate with Hebrews at dinner time. Maybe it was just good old-fashioned racism. Maybe these Egyptians were simply racist. They didn't like Asiatic people. I don't know. Maybe we were. Okay, I'm going to have to do something about this. Sorry. Okay. Alright, well, let's see here. Yeah, the cat was in one of her moods, so I just had to remove her from the equation. It just got to the point where there was nothing else that I could do. Moving on. Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and brothers, with their flocks and herds and everything they own, have come from the land of Canaan and are now in Goshen. He chose 5 of his brothers and presented them before Pharaoh. Not all 11. I guess he didn't want to overwhelm Pharaoh that much. Doesn't want to make Pharaoh think that they're more of a threat than they actually are. Later pharaohs will think that. We don't want to annoy this Pharaoh. This Pharaoh is actually our ally for the time being. We don't want to annoy him yet. Pharaoh asked the brothers, what is your occupation? Your servants are shepherds, they replied to Pharaoh, just as our fathers were. They also said to him, we have come to live here a while because the famine is severe in Canaan, and your servants' flocks have no pasture. So now, please let your servants settle in Goshen. Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in Goshen. And if you know of any of them among them with special ability, put them in charge of my own livestock. Then Joseph brought his father Jacob in and presented him before Pharaoh. After Jacob blessed Pharaoh, or greeted Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, how old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult, and they do not equal the years of the pilgrimage of my fathers. You know, Abraham got to 175, Isaac got to 180, Jacob's only going to get to 147. He's 130 right now. Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his, or said farewell to Pharaoh, and went out from his presence. Assuming that this is a blessing, we have to remember the principle of the lesser is blessed by the greater. So here is Pharaoh receiving the blessing from Jacob, meaning Jacob is greater than Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is receiving this blessing, so he is acknowledging that Jacob is greater than he is. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramesses. That's a word that we're going to have to talk about later, as Pharaoh directed. Joseph also provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their children.